Guatemala. Follow me now. This a the we have the nobody do it to no Guatemala. This time me name is Pupa. Belize me come from the Belize City area. 110% Belize and proud of it. No, tell me about maritime area. Long time ago agreement by the slave master. Talking about the head on the Belize and dollar because patriot. To no Guatemala. Follow me now. This a the we have the nobody do it to no Guatemala. This time me name is Pupa. Belize me come from the Belize City area. 110% Belize and proud of it. No, tell me about maritime area. Long time ago agreement by the slave master. Talking about the head on the Belize and dollar because patriots. All people who love them country bad, bad love them homeland. Will never give it up to another nation. Them country bad, bad love them homeland. Will never give it up to another nation. This is the we the fear. Nobody do it to no Guatemala. Follow me now. This is the we the fear. Nobody do it to no Guatemala. This time me name is Pupa. Belize me come from the Belize City area. 110% Belize and proud of it. No, tell me about maritime area. Long time ago agreement by the slave master. Talking about the head on the Belize and dollar because patriots. All people who love them country bad, bad love them homeland. Will never give it up to another nation. Them country bad, bad love them homeland. Will never give it up to another nation. This is the we the fear. Nobody do it to no Guatemala. Follow me now. This is the we the fear. Nobody do it to no Guatemala. This time me name is Pupa. Believe me come.
My real sister. And her name is, I love her she last name especially, Sister Jalima Gold. Good morning, sis.
Good morning, Sister YaYa.
Sister Jalima is in Placencia.
Yes, ma'am.
In Eva Shigna very that Placencia. But and I know I hear your American accent. But trust me, she da choo Belizean coffee. So Jalima is here representing the Belize Women Seaweed Farmers Association from out of Placencia. She's the president. And she recently went to, I think Baja California was in California, where it said Baja California, Mexico.
It's in Mexico. It's Baja California Sur. So it's definitely in Mexico.
Okay. And to tell us about her representation of Belizeans in their, I think it's their second cohort, because next year I know they're going to be on the continent of Africa. Hatch Blue, hashtag Women in Ocean Food. So that will make it come today. But we don't know my sister. So yeah, reason leave it. Sister Jalima. Who the Sister Jalima? Because you have an American accent and a crofty. Talk to me. We're going on with that. And you bleed Placencia. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
I do have an American accent. That's because I was raised in the States. My family is right here, true and true, from every part of this little village here in Placencia. My dad's side of the family, fishermen, fisher folk, same people. I was down here when I was a baby, and I left to go to the States when I was about three years old. And I came back in my early 20s to kind of meet my peoples and see where I was from. And I never went home. And I also never adopted Creole since I've been back. So that's why I have that American accent. But yes, I was raised in Hawaii, California. I was kind of raised all over the place, always in places that had oceans, so I was identifiable to that for down here. But when I came here and I came home, I felt such a internal something. I really felt like I was home, and so I'm here now and I haven't left. I've been here for like about 15 years.
Tell us some more about Jalima. So one of the things that I really admire about Jalima is a go-getter. I don't know what Jalima done do already. Like seriously, like Jalima has lived experience at a mastery or leadership level in a whole bunch of things. And one of the things we also like about Jalima is have no colonial papers. Now you would know that when you see Jalima at high level meetings globally, and hear how she listens, thinks for herself, pull on her lived experiences and respond, share. And so that one of the things where I really, besides her badass, besides her, okay, Jelima to get too comfortable, I think so we have camera. Besides her, her confidence in herself, her honesty with herself, and I really rate that in a human beings. So how is it that you, because you're also here representing, okay, at the talk loud, I'm excited. Let me calm down.
I'm excited too.
You know,
This has been a long time in the making. This has been a
yes,
long time in the making for me to make it on your show.
yes. Okay. I know Selena must have laughed. No heck, Selena, our other sister. So let me ask, Jalima, you also here as the president of the Belize Women Seaweed Farmers Association. But before you became the president, you've been involved in a number of community actions in Placentia. So tell us how you developed your people skills and align that with your love for the ocean.
So I consider myself a self-taught Jill of all trades, right? I don't know about the name Jill, but you're right. I by trade, I went to cosmetology school in California. I did hair, I've owned my own fishing business. From when I was very small, I've always liked to work, and I've always worked with people. When I was about 14, I think I worked in a coffee shop. Before that, I was always a babysitter. I've always been working, and it really is live life experiences, like you said. Sometimes I do find myself in situations, and I've talked to you about this, where I'm standing up there on a stage with everybody that has these, as you call it, right, colonial papers that give them big PhDs or doctorates or other things. And I find myself wondering, like, how did I make it up here? Just sometimes, but then I have to sit back and I have to remind myself that I am up here with all these people, and I don't, I didn't go the same route that they did. But it's definitely, I am where I am because of absolute lived life experiences. And so I think that's also why I'm a little bit more, I don't know how, well, passionate. They could say I rail up a lot or I talk loud, but to me, it's passion, right? Because I have lived those life experiences, and there's something that are very dear to me. I've always been a talker since I was very young, so I don't know where that came from, but I definitely have always been someone that likes to speak and likes to talk. And I think just going through every different level of my life, I want to do this, I did that, it didn't work out. I never really gave up. I kind of just flowed into something else, that kind of worked. And it just gave me all these different experiences. I did used to own a fishing business down here, and I've always had a love for the ocean. I don't know whether it's from when I was small. I did live down here. I was always at the Keys with my grandparents. I've lived in these waters since I was a baby. I was in California and Hawaii, and I've always had some kind of connection to the ocean, and I came down here and I opened a fishing business. That didn't work out. That closed down with my last relationship. So that was done, right? But I still had a connection to the ocean out here. And in California, I actually worked a lot in agriculture. So I worked for farmers there. I've worked for many different kind of farmers. I did farmers markets. I did pumpkin patch farming. I did every kind of farming. So then when it came down here and I realized that there was something that was like agriculture, but in the water, which would be seaweed farming, it's something that kind of just, it spoke to me. So, I mean, that's kind of like how that kind of all all melded together as my past lived experiences and loving the ocean, and then being in agriculture, and then seeing that something could be, those two things could be put together, but also create livelihoods and sustainability, and also kind of, well, people consider me a conservation too, right? Because what we do, we were kind of taking care of, we're stewardships of the ocean out there. So all these things put together, for seaweed farming specifically, it just kind of worked for me.
Things that we may not think about when we talk about lived experiences would be the skills that you nurture, if they're natural abilities, or skills that you acquire from being in these different lived experiences. And a big portion of that would be creativity, your grit to survive. And even if it didn't turn out the way you expected it to, you still learned from it. And it didn't stop you from, doing another venture independently and not necessarily thinking about going to work for someone for wages, and how what a toll that is on your mind, on your body, on your being, because it's very stressful when you don't have steady income coming in to take care of yourself and your family. But that forges something in you as a person that could either make you be stagnant, stuck, or propel you forward. So your lived experiences give you a lot of soft and hard skills. How has it been for you within the Placencia community? The accent alone, you know how we behave when we hear an accent. And then someone who is not with colonial papers, someone who's confident, and who, if then I invite you, you put yourself in that the people are meeting. What has been the reception of you as a community person, as a grassroots leader in Placencia?
Well, like one thing that you said was grit, right? Grit is so important for anybody to have because it's scary to do things on your own or to do something that's new or just to make your own. You're not relying on anyone else, right? Like you said, you're relying on yourself. And if you fail, then you only have yourself to kind of fall back on as a failure. But if you don't really look at that as a failure and you try to learn from that and take whatever experience it was, even through hairdressing, I could take certain skills that I've learned in hairdressing and apply them to speaking to people or reading people or knowing how to be in someone else's, aura or whatever, I think you really have to take, if you can, you don't have to also get stuck in the same thing, right? People get stuck like, I've done this and this is what I have to do my whole life because these are the skills that I have. But I think if you can really be able to take some of those skills and apply it to something else, then it really just builds on, your skill level. Being accepted, you hear my accent. I know how everybody goes on. I still get questioned whether I'm from here or not, right? You don't know YaYa, and you this and you that. Having my family really did a lot of it. Everybody knows my dad, everybody knows my grandpa, so they can't say I'm not from here. And there's definitely a certain age group that accepted me a lot more because they knew my dad, they knew me here, they saw me here. I have definitely had to work a little bit to get some acceptance as being, as I call myself, a nationalist for my country, because this is where I consider my country, where I'm from. But I don't really let people not accept me, I guess you could say. I mean, they could not accept me, but I'm not going to go away, and I'm not going to take it personal, right? So whether I'm here in Placencia to stay, whether they like it or not. And I have been accepted. There are some people that maybe see my ways as different. I guess that's a nice way of saying it, right? I have different ways, but ultimately I have the same want and need as everyone else down here, right? And so I love my village, I love my country. And I think through me proving that that's what I'm here for, a lot of people say I do it for myself or I do it for me or whatever I'm doing out there in the community, right?
Oh, I don't know what happened. Jalima just got dropped from the Zoom conversation. We were speaking with Jalima Golds, and I don't know if I'm still on. I'm thinking I am. Uh, who is the president of the Belize Women Seaweed Farmers Association in Placencia. I'm just checking. Okay, I'm still on. I don't know what happened. Why Jalima got dropped. Thanks, Selena. Tell our sister Selena. Make sure she don't text. Yes, you're still on. My MCO tell me I'm still on. So I'm asking Jalima to. There you go. She's back. She's connected
Okay,
with her audio.
technical difficulties. Sorry, we're back.
That's okay.
See, even if I get pushed out of something, I'll find my way back in very fast.
Jalima. Yes. I'm like, she's really one of my ride or die sisters in Placencia. So is Selena Lucas. Yes, you so what you're saying is very true, Jalima, about you know, you're here to stay. How did you become the president of the Belize Women Seaweeds Farmers Association?
I'm the current president now. There was a group of us. I mean, if we're going to start into that, there was a group of us. I've always been involved in the Belize Women Seaweed Farmers Association. Seaweed, as we know here in Belize, it's a traditional and a cultural thing for us, right? Everyone from our grandpas, our uncles, mostly a man's thing, which we are trying to change. That is one of our you know our things we're changing. But it's always been collected from the reef out here. Um, and so Japs, there's a few men down here. He's no longer with us, but there were a group of guys that started to farm it, and there were some women that were farming it with them, and that's kind of how the I guess the seaweed farming got started. I have been a part of it from the very beginning. I was the secretary. There was a group of about 5 to 7 women that started as like a core group in the very beginning, and I was one of those as the secretary because they thought that would be the good side. That would be my side of it, right? And I've been working. 2017, we kind of started talking about it. 2019, we got legal as an actual association, because that's not very easy either, you know, to start in this country, you know, to get a legitimate association together. Because all of us that started it pretty much were fisher folk, right? All the women, they were tour guides, they worked on the ocean, they were divers. So none of us really knew anything about getting a legitimate association together and what that could bring. So we got legal in 2019, and I have been gritting it out since 2019. And so I became, at the last AGM, I became the president.
One of the things that I found interesting in this particular association, to my knowledge, I haven't had this experience in Belize or anywhere else. I said, Jalima, this is a women's association. And that's to identify as such in the naming of the organization, it will be very gender focused. And what was your response to me, Jalima?
Well, you're asking because we do have a male that's we have somebody, were you asking because we have a male, right, in our association? In the very beginning, it was a group of women that started. There were no men because also traditionally seaweed is something only for the men. There are two aspects of it: seaweed farming and in fisheries, right? Being a fisherman or a fisherman, like none of that has to do with the women. The women always stay home. But seaweed farming is something that women are capable of doing down here. And that all of the women that started this, they went out there and they learned how to do it. They either went out there with their grandparents or their uncles. They knew about it, but it was nothing that was like for them. So there's barriers that have been being pushed along the way, even with the naming of our association, because no one associates women with seaweed in this country. No one associates women, with fisher folk in this country. But we still persisted, and so we do have men in our association because part of our mission and our vision, our mission statement is to uplift our community. Another reason, there are a lot of different reasons I think that came together why we started the association. One of them was to create livelihood, like jobs year round, because Placencia is solely tourism based. I had a fishing business. I've worked in that business. I know what it's like to make money for 4 months out of the year, 5 months, and have to make it stretch. So creating livelihoods through farming and through value added products for the seaweed industry was something that we really wanted to do. But one of our big missions is to uplift our community, and we don't just have females in our community, right? And so we had to figure out a way to be inclusive but still stay true to who we are. All the women have sons in our association. We can't tell our sons like we're building this great thing, but you guys can't be a part of it. So we do have a subcategory for men that can join the association. The board and all decision making will always be done by women, and no males can ever sit on the board. But we have a subcategory for men because men are in our community and we want to uplift our whole community.
I thought that was so powerful, different. I really rated that style of leadership. When you so what's the day-to-day for the Belize Women Seaweed Farmers Association?
I want to go back to that for a second because we get this question a lot, right? Because, you're a women's association. Why don't I have men? And why wouldn't this and that? And we even got it from the powers that be. I won't name names, but even like NGOs and certain people were like, oh, you can't have any men in there. You're not going to get grants and you're not going to get this because a lot of grant funding out there is gender specific, especially these days when it comes to women, right? And so we did have a back and forth. There was definitely some meetings that happened, and there were some people that said no, we have to have only women, and there were some, but we ultimately came to a decision. But it was not something that was easily done, and I feel like we had pressure from other people to stay women only, but we had written our vision and our mission statement back in the day, and it honestly, it says in there is to uplift our community. And so just based on uplifting our community, we could not be gender specific, but we could still be a women-led association. So
I'm glad that you paused me to give more detail about the process, because oftentimes we don't get to experience or know that the process. We would see the end product many times, or the end product we will be impacted by it, but we don't know the struggle, sleepless nights, the stress to arrive at certain decisions that are pivotal in the organizing life of a group of people with similar interests. So I really appreciate you sticking a pin there to stress or to expand that conversation. So
it wasn't easy for most of us. It really was not easy for a lot of us to come to these. When we started this association, we're all family. Most of us are related in somehow, or we have some kind of past connections. So it has been a process in a small community like this to kind of put aside stuff like that. In the beginning, we had conflict resolution training. We went through many different trainings on even how to just resolve conflicts within the association and not have them affect our every day-to-day life. Because it's like, if you have a meeting with someone and you go against them and then you go see them at the shop, they're going to get vexed with you and I tell you, well, I don't like how you got on in a meeting and all these kind of different things, right? But we have worked very, very hard, and there have been people that have left and come back and done whatever because of certain decisions. But we've all had to work very hard on learning how to resolve conflict, because no one's always going to be happy, right? But in the very beginning, someone told us, it was in one of those conflict resolutions, that it's like your baby, you do what's best for your baby and you don't do what's best for you. So sometimes you have to take yourself out of, well, I'm mad with her from the other day. And so, it's a different struggle when you live in a community that's so small, having to be able to take personal issues and personal feelings and family struggles out so you can really get down to what's best for the association. And we have worked very hard on that. And that's part of the reason why we're here.
So I telling about Jalima, like I have had conversations with gazillion people, especially the one there with colonial papers. And I don't recall anybody ever said that before. Like you would hear that there's conflict resolution training, but you don't really get it like how you just explained it. And so that's another thing that she has quite a bit of formal training. And for me, that as a grassroots leader, knowing people like Jalima, learning and listening to people like Jalima really matters to me in how I lead. And so even though that just it might sound like, just a part of the conversation, that was a big gem you just dropped, because even though Belize City may be bigger than Placencia, Belize City is this small. For us who are on the ground, like people know people and you're near the boat and people know we're into if they're not sort of nearly so kind of vibes. And so I thought that was a very, very good point that you made, especially when you're in leadership. We would say we don't take things personal, but then we repeat a story, or we have attitude, or we haven't worked on ourselves to change our mindset that there's another way to look at this other than the way that I'm looking at it. And even if I don't agree with the way that the person is looking at it, I still ought to listen with compassion and empathy to hear what the person is saying. And it's not a mindset of I'm talking with you to convince you of something, or the person is talking with me to convince me of something. It's truly listening to learn with no judgment. And culturally in Belize, we don't have models of that in our homes, in our schools, in the places where we socialize. And so I find that it's difficult for a lot of people to do that. So if you're not able to do that in your homes with your families, it's difficult for you to do it anywhere else. And so we all come with our lived experiences in a space, primarily women, working class women, who don't have a whole lot of time for the lamp of God money for make. So how does the Belize Women Seaweed Farmers Association make money?
I want to stick one more thing in that, because but it's a very, I think it's a really important part of why other either organizations or small, villages and places don't kind of move past a certain level, right? Because this is also a day to day. This is not something we took a conflict resolution class, a few years ago, but this is also something that you have to remind yourself day to day of, because things come up every day, and Placencia is a fishbowl, right? And so, like I said, we really just, we're all together and we're all related and we all have connections, but it's something that you have to pull yourself back from sometimes, because things happen day to day and you forget that conflict resolution and that thing pissed you off and that thing got this, you know what I mean? And so it's something that you have to mindfully work on. But if more people could do that and really just take personal things out of it and do what's best for whatever group or association they're in, they will soon see small strides in getting further and further, in their organization. But having compassion and not taking things personal are two very important things when you're dealing with community, small community, families, and all of that kind of stuff.
We know that's easier said than done.
Right. Very much so.
It is easier said than done. But again, another big gem that you're dropping is individual accountability. So it doesn't matter how many training you attend or how many times you traveled around the world, if you are not being honest with yourself about my traits, my tendencies, my habits, good or bad, honestly, be honest with yourself about it, and then have good sounding boards, people in your circle will not tell you why here, but we need for here, like Jalima and Selena, so that I want here on it. But they will still tell you. Like, you need that to be a better person. Because before you can participate in any meaningful community engagement, you need to work on yourself consistently, and then have people who applaud you, who celebrate you, and who acknowledge. I say, in this instance, I see one difference. That's really good. Like, really, champion you as a person. Like, that matters. Especially in our small space. So again, thank you, Jalima. And you don't hear anything, Ina. Like, I don't hear, like, them two just, I don't hear it. Maybe other people hear it, I don't hear it. And so it matters. And then what that does is that's a part of your cultural or social capital. The fact that you are real, Jalima. I don't find a lot of authentic, real people. And I don't want nobody to tell you your experience there yourself, whether you're sitting in a person face to face, or a news, or an article you read, or this is a really small fishbowl, the world. So as you do more environmental justice work, you meet people in the region. I mean, people travel, people know personality, people know where you said it. Yeah, you know this person. I'm like, because you have to vet people, right? And I said, because I don't want, like, then I'm my responsibility for that bad about people. And I just said, and they're like, okay. But I'm like, I'm very careful. I haven't always done this, and I talk loud again. I'm like very careful. Because I don't want we that say not cruel bad mouth people. Yeah, I have an obligation to be truthful. So I could say from my experience, like, I experienced this person in this way, like 10 years ago, people could change. I could share some interviews that were done, articles that they've written, and then you come to your own conclusion, because how a person might engage me could be very different from how they engage Jalima. And then the people life, that they're not just one moment make one person who they are. So before we go, Jalima, tell us about how you have seen yourself grown as a human being, as someone in leadership. Like, let's say over the past 5 years, how have you seen yourself grow?
How are you? I knew you'd ask me good questions because it's hard to talk about myself sometimes. I could talk about the association. I could talk about this work, that work. Um, one of the main biggest things I do think, and I still kind of, it's hard for me to consider myself a leader, right? Like I see myself in that position, but I haven't accepted it fully yet. I think I'm still working on that. Um, but I have learned to take a lot more things less personal, to be honest with you. I mean, I really, really have, because I I have changed. I have changed in so many ways. I haven't really thought about this question. No one's asked me that yet in the last 5 years. I have become a lot more compassionate. I have become a lot more, I think, intentional in what I do listen to and learn and hold on to. And I'm a lot more intentional in what I let go of, right? Because to be a leader, you kind of have to be someone that a lot of people can identify with, or more people can identify with, and they have to. I do come off abrasive to a lot of people down here sometimes. I always get told that I'm shouting or yelling, certain ways that I talk. People don't like, so I've had to really hone in on how other people perceive me and not let that be something that gets me mad. Because at first, when someone tells you something about yourself, you're like, well, watch how you want to be hit. You want to automatically just kind of go into how someone else is, but you really have to just turn it off and just listen to possibly whatever they're saying, right? And take away, if someone's telling you something about yourself, there might be some bad mind to it. There might be some, but there's also some truth to it. So you have to be able to take out that truth and really just let it sit with yourself, and then you have to apply it. So realizing all these things or learning all these things is like part of it, but then applying it in everyday situations like this, or when I went to Hatch or anywhere I went, speaking, because I do talk a lot to NGOs and fisheries and government agencies, and I have had to hone in the way that I get my point across so it can be taken in the fashion that I want it to. Because I do feel very passionate. This work that we do and a lot of work that I do, it's very important. But I find that in the beginning, the way that I was speaking, people were just like, "You just a rail up, and you don't know when, and you don't know what you to talk about, and you're not." And so I really had to hone that down and learn to become a very intentional speaker.
Very
It's
good,
hard.
Jalima.
It's not easy. I get a lot of advice from you though. I do get a lot of advice that's taken to heart. But I'm trying to be more intentional and less personal, because the ultimate goal is what matters, right? Our future, our community, for our kids. And if you take things personal, then that generation, they're not going to see the fruits of your labor.
Respect. It's time for our first break. Stay tuned. Jalima Gold, president of the Belize Women Seaweed Farmers Association from out of Placencia Village in Belize. Stay tuned.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Let me ask her.
For real politics,
I don't know. Oh my gosh. I hope we're not on.
right?
She's saying we are on. Oh my gosh. Alexis, you need to count me down because we not everything what we said during the break need to be on the air. Welcome back to the second segment of Sunday Review. Sister YaYa, Marin Coleman, and Sister Jalima Gould. She's the president of the Belize Women Seaweed Farmers Association. And so someone texted and had a specific question they wanted asked. And so I'm asking Jalima if you could tell us what the day-to-day of the association is. What is it that the association does? And I know that when you went to Hatch Blue Innovation Studio Latin America 2024, hashtag Women in Ocean Food, that one of the things that Hatch is known to do is, I've never heard of Hatch before I met Jalima and she told me about this process, but we'll get into that. In this segment, tell us more about the seaweed farmers. What do you all do day to day? Like, where do you do your farming? How much, what's the size of the farming that you do? What do you do with the seaweed? What is the process? Do you sell it? Are there value-added products? Tell us the day-to-day of the Seaweed Farmers Association.
Those are a lot of different questions that I have to ask. And I will be real, there is a lot of kind of unknown in the industry right now as far as legislature and policy and stuff like that. There's two parts of the association, right? We have the farming aspect, and then we have the value-added product aspect. So there are two different kind of aspects to it. Reason being because some people want to be out there doing the farms, and that is needed, but also very important part to uplifting your community is creating small businesses and creating value added products. And that is where you can make really the most amount of money out of seaweed and keep it in country. And so we have some members. We have 20 members now. So we're up to 20 members, which is good. Not all of those members go out there and farm. Some of those members, we work with government agencies like Bell Trade and other people to help get small businesses established. But most of the people right now, they have other jobs, like day-to-day jobs, right? So we haven't gotten to a point yet. And I know that the 5-year plan, we would like to be able to have employees that are going out there and farming every single day. And then we would like to have people in their businesses being self-sustainable and really being able to make a good living off of the seaweed products that they sell. So right now we have about 7 plots. We farm 22 miles out, which is right near Ray Key, which we're kind of also, the whole industry right now is going through a shift and a change. And so they're trying to establish farm sites. There are no real regulations at this point or policy concerning seaweed or there's a mariculture kind of policy, but it hasn't been put into law yet. So we have been, though, working closely for the last four years. We've been working with, there are people like TNC, fisheries department. I mean, everyone has to be involved when you're doing seaweed farming. So even lands department, forestry, fisheries, all that stuff. There has been a policy created. It needs to kind of be updated because seaweed, we have a market here for seaweed, right? But it's kind of an unknown market. We don't have any market studies done yet. We don't have any supply chains done yet. So it's a little bit hard to kind of legitimize it. And without legitimizing it, which there also is a back and forth about that too, right? Because, some people, they don't want anyone coming in there and telling them what to do or how to farm or how to do this. But without having some sort of, regulations and legitimacy to the mariculture and seaweed industry, we can't grow any further than it is. So there's been back and forth about that, but I personally believe that we need to have some kind of regulations. So we're working with coastal zone management right now. They're doing a marine spatial plan to try to map out where the best places for seaweed farms can go, where they can fit, how many they can have. Fisheries recently has come to us and talked to us about the need and the urgency for having permits. So that I can speak to some of that, but there's not much that I can speak to yet because there really isn't much to talk about yet. I know that in the next few months that there definitely will be a huge change and a shift, and there will be a specific seaweed policy that falls under the mariculture policy, which also falls under the aquaculture policy. But the seaweed that they're focusing on right now, it will be able to give people license, small scale farmers licenses, because that's another thing that we're really pushing for is maintaining, I guess you could say, but small scale farmers. You know, seaweed is an $11 billion a year industry worldwide, but that is mostly from Asia and China and other places where their seaweed is valued at $2 to $4 a pound on the market, right? And they use it for things like alginate dressing, and they use it for agar, and they extract carrageenan, and they mass produce it non-sustainably. And so a lot of people feel, you know, I guess in this country, and they see it's $11 billion industry, we have to get into it, but we have to really.
Are you talking US dollars or Belize dollars?
US. And so there is a huge market out there for it, but it's, what I've learned is that it's completely different than Belize and Belize's market. We have set it nationally a market price. It's $15 US, right? So $30 to $40 Belize a pound. And that's what we've set nationally for ourselves. So we have to be very careful with wanting to export and have all these international people come in, because we have had people come in and say, we'll buy your seaweed at market price. But market price is $2 to $4. And the way that we farm it sustainably, small scale, out, you know, far out there logistically, that doesn't work for us. And we won't, as people, make a good living off of it, you know? And so we need to focus as a country on our national market. And if we focus on our national market, and I also believe that working with the Caribbean, if we work as a Caribbean community together, we can actually make a difference and push on that international market. But let's say Belize alone, or St. Lucia alone, or Barbados, any of these countries alone that do seaweed farming, we won't be able to have a big impact. So one of my hopes, and we've been working on this, is to kind of work with the Caribbean as a whole community to really coin high value, small scale, sustainably farmed seaweed and its value added products at a high value market price. Then if we can do that, like in the Caribbean or even in Belize, we can then push this out into the international community and say, okay, that's your market price, but this is our market price, and we know that it can work. So I don't know where I was going with that, but I think we're going back to like legislation, because there are so many different pieces to this whole puzzle. There's the farming aspect, there is the business aspect, the value added products, which we have so many people in this country that have successful businesses out of making value added products, but they can't move forward because of certain, you know, laws or export or import fees and certain things like that. And that's another thing that we're trying to work with, is really getting help for people so they can actually grow their business, you know, and export it without being. Most small businesses right now, when you make money, you're gonna lose all of your profit, which is importing your packaging, exporting fees, or getting any of those things. So we really want to try to streamline that. And so that's another thing that we're working on. So we work with policy, we work with farming, we work with value added products and businesses. And we only have one employee right now. So we only have one legitimate employee, and it's a contract worker. So this is also for the association something we all do that's passionate, but we're trying to get that labor of love and turn it into some kind of equity for all of us, legitimate equity. We did just receive a grant through the Belize Fund, which will allow us to, what is that face? We did just receive.
Go on that face. What is the Belize Fund?
So, well, the Belize Fund, they're the Belize Fund. It used to be, they changed the name from the Belize Sustainable. I forget the whole name because it was very long. But we got it through the Blue Bonds Initiative. That's like kind of how it comes through. But the Belize Fund gives out money for organizations. We fought very hard, and I have to big up them though, because in the very beginning, things like grant writing and getting grants for small organizations are very hard to get because of what you need just to even apply for them. We went back and forth with the Belize Fund for I would say a few months. Max, our trusted grant writing, our one contracted employee, he wrote for this grant. They told us that we shouldn't apply for it because we weren't ready, but we said no, we're going to write for it because we deserve it. So we have been going back and forth, back and forth. We did actually get a grant from them, and recently they said they were going to change some of their policies and certain things to allow us to kind of like just move through with that grant. So I do have to give it up to them because they did kind of see where we were coming from, but I had to do a lot of railing up. That's really what it happened. I really had to tell them. I honestly think I cried in a few of those meetings. I did cry because it was so frustrating to deal with these people say, we're going to help you. We're going to help you. And there's all this money out there for seaweed farming and for women. But so we just got a grant from them. We haven't actually gotten it yet. And we did get another grant through the British High Commission. They have a conservation area. And so we got 2 grants recently that will kind of coincide with each other, that this year will really propel us because it's going to give us an employee, some administrative help, an office, and some of the foundational work that the association needs to kind of move forward.
No, Belizeans, if they follow Sunday Review, should know that we do not support the Belize Blue Bond or anything affiliated with it. And it's primarily because most Belizeans do not know what the Blue Bond loan is. There was never an awareness campaign. There was secrecy in the negotiation. And it's Belizean people who will forever have to pay that loan back, inclusive of the super loan. We don't know what is super loan money gone. We can't say how it impact we life and make it better. So on principle, I don't support the Blue Bond at all. You can look forward to a more rigorous, because we have in this space have had a Blue Bond awareness campaign for Belizeans to be aware of what it is and what our obligations will be and our children. Now, I do understand for small organizations such as the Belize Women Seaweed Farmers Association, it's very hard for everyday organizations, let's say like a Dara feeding program. Usually grassroots organizers see a need in their community and organize around that need. There are not people who have one bag of money for get one attorney for help or get registered for be a non-profit or an NGO. And so funders need to, if they're genuinely into people, and usually funders are very capitalist minded people, look at other ways if you genuinely want to help grassroots communities and everyday people who are oftentimes the one who are most impacted by decisions in a negative way made by governments and NGOs and other actors from the private sector, for example. That oftentimes there are not people, so they always end up on TV, they ask for donations, ask for support, and you cannot be sustainable. You can't do the kind of work where you want to, honestly, on the best interest. You need to have money, you need to have one level of capacity building so that you could have the infrastructure, the computer, the internet were reliable, people know how to use Excel. You need people who are trained and your trust, and honestly not look for a bag of money. I got some colonial paper, sure I should be an executive director. That Jalima gonna ask me that where I get a face for, I make her get into the spiel right now.
No, I understand face, but that's why I had to specifically say I have to big up them a little bit because that's what they did. Because previously, this is what they told us. You can't apply for that loan. You don't have this and you don't have that, and you need to do this. And we said, but we know what we need to do, and we're asking for that in our loan. And if you are genuinely want to help organizations that you say you want to help, you will make that happen. And so they did. They in this instance, I can't say for all other instances because I do agree with you on a lot of the other points that you're making, and that's from lived experience. But this instance, they did really see what I was saying, but I had to cry and I had to holler and I had to really get my point out there and tell them, we're who you guys say you're going to help. And if you don't help us, then you guys are not doing your job, And
that's
so
another gem, Jalima, because most of our people are everyday people, would not even be in rooms or in spaces to have the conversation, much less push back. I see very few Belizeans, and I'm not vexed to know that they not invite me on a space because I waste of my time for go. But most times when I call, they're like, when I say Jalima, I'm like, oh my goodness. When I say I'm like, oh, because these are not go along people. And they're not people who are just to make nice, that people were knowledgeable, were confident, and genuinely represent the people when I said I represent. So respect to you for push back on it. And as you have acknowledged that they did listen and to get some funding. But look out for UEF Belize Blue Bond awareness advocacy campaign going next level in a couple weeks, and look out for it. So again, I really appreciate you taking time to go into such details, Jalima, and giving credit where credit is due based on your lived experience and your staff or the group of people, sisters and their families who support this initiative. Now, how in the heck I want with this? And I share was it on 10, but I don't remember.
I want to add one point to that,
Yes.
though, because when you said people see you or me coming into certain meetings, I'm not going to lie, I get briefed, or they try, right? Like to brief me before either doing a webinar or going into certain meetings, I'm not going to call any names, but I was asked to be, keep it positive one time, before we go into all these things. And I told that person, who is government people, whatever, I don't consider myself to be negative. I consider myself to talk the truth. And if you don't want to hear it, then I don't know what to tell you, right? And so we're people, at least they know they have to have us in a room, but they're a little bit scared, right? Like not scared, but they're like, what are they going to say? But it's also very good for me to be in those spaces because like I've been trying to work on myself. I've been trying to get my point across in ways that can work. And I have been in the position in rooms where I know that a lot of other people wouldn't be in. And so I'm very mindful about staying true to fighting for the real people on the ground, because in those rooms, I know that they say a lot, and they may mean, or they say a lot about who they want to help, right? But there is nobody in those big rooms of meetings that are really sticking up for people that are on the ground. And so that is one thing that I'm very appreciative in my position, that I do get to do that. But I get prepped a lot before. The emails, we're going to have a meeting, we're going to have a forum, we're going to meet with these people, but please don't talk about this and please don't talk about that. They can't say that to me.
Jalima, my warrior sister of my own heart. So Jalima, how the heck you get invited to Hatch Blue? After this, we're going to a break, but because usually you're not invited in such international spaces. How you get there?
Well, we weren't actually invited. Well, we applied, right? So we got the invitation from an there's a Caribbean aquaculture network that we're a part of. And we got that connection through a consultation, which don't get me started on consultations. But anyways, there was something good that came out of that. And they sent us the application. And we applied for it. And it was, a lot of people don't consider Belize as part of Latin America, right? And so we were like, can we even go? Can we even try? But we applied for it. It wasn't a very hard application. It was fairly basic. They do their research. There was 115, or I believe there's a little over 115 people that did apply throughout Latin America for this program. And we got into it. So they saw something in us, we were the only English speaking, only, Black. We were the only people that were there, there's one other person from Colombia, but everyone else was from all over Latin America. So we applied for it and we got into it, and it was very exciting for me to go to that.
Excellent. That's a good segue for our last segment. So we'll take our final break. Everything is going just real good, except that we'll go up on the air. I never know we're on the air, so I have to go back and sit down with it.
Let's take a journey through the core functions of the Social Security Board. It all
sense, and so and your extended family. One of the things, so we looked at with the reason why Jalima is here today is because of her representation of Belize and Belizeans at the Hatch Blue hashtag Women in Ocean Food Innovation Studio Latin America 2024. I never even know about Hatch. So what was this innovation studio about, Jalima?
Well, so a little bit about Hatch and aquaculture. Hatch is an international organization. They work with CI Ventures, many big people in the aquaculture, which is like fin fish and the production, the farmed fish, pretty much. And their main thing is to try to get aquaculture sustainably done, because there's a whole part of the food for the fish, and there's a whole part of the way that they're grown or they're farmed that's not sustainable. But since our world population is growing and we need more protein, a lot has been put on farmed fish, because we're overfishing the oceans. We're taking away forests for meat and all kind of different things. So Hatch they really focus on trying to get the aquaculture industry sustainable and to really grow it so we can have sustainable proteins that are not taking from the ocean and not doing anything else bad for the environment. And I really didn't know much about Hatch before I got that email from Julie from the Caribbean Aquaculture Network. And in the beginning, I thought, well, we can't really apply for that. We don't do aquaculture. Mariculture, is a little bit different. Seaweed farming is a little bit different from that. But me and Max said, well, whatever, we're going to apply for it. We're going to try, we have a chance. And to me, seaweed is full of protein, right? It's full of nutrients, it's full of vitamins. So it can be considered a food from the ocean. So we applied for it. There is an application process and there was an interview process. And I know they do their vetting and they look up our organization and they look up what's going on. Most of the people that were there, they were in the aquaculture industry. There was another person, a very good friend of mine, Tamires, and she has Phyco Labs out of Brazil, and she is making fibers out of the same kind of seaweed that we're doing. So there's only two people with seaweed. It was us, and then there was Phyco Labs, and she makes fibers out of seaweed that is going to go into the fashion industry, because plastics and rayons and all those bad stuff that are in clothes are one of the biggest pollutants in the ocean. So she's trying to kind of like do that. But there's no one else doing seaweed there. And so it was a little bit intimidating because there was no one else doing seaweed. And there was about 20 people that got chosen. There was 3 cooperatives. And so it's a little bit different to go as a cooperative than someone that has their own business, because all those other people were there for their own business, right? They had a business, they had this. I was there, and there were 2 other women, and they did shellfish. They were cooperatives. But Hatch Innovation Studio. So the Innovation Studio is a 2-week-long process. They have an accelerator program that's 6 weeks, and they take certain businesses and they take them through. It's like a crash course in business, in investing, in sustainability. And that 6-week that 6-week course is very intensive. And so what this was a 2-week course, and it kind of gave like a little overview. It was definitely a crash course. We were in classes from about 9 in the morning until 5 at night. We had different speakers come in for 3 days at a time. They'd be there and then they would leave. We had classes on everything from market supply, market studies. We had a leadership talk. Actually, one of my favorite talks was from a guy named Robert Orr, who on leadership, right? And we had talks on leadership. We had talks on, the amount of investors, even just that segment, how to invest, where to invest, how to get yourself set to invest, what kind of investment to look for. Those are things that I've never heard about any of those kind of things, right? And so we had crash courses in the aquaculture industry, in the mariculture industry, where it is. And there is a lot of peer engagement, which was really cool there. I did like that about it. Like a lot of different people, we had to come up with a pitch deck, which I've never done before, right? I said, what? I have to do a pitch deck, And I was definitely a little bit nervous about it. And I was like, oh no, what do I do? But I got a ton of help from other peers there, every day in that room, I mean, the amount of support from all the other women, I mean, it was all women, right? Which is another cool thing because I've never been in a room having to do with aquaculture or fishing or anything where it is all women. There's always majority of men and a few women. So just being in that room with all these women who were strong business, they were passionate. They all, you know, they were so intelligent, and they were so also kind. And we got a lot of peer help with that. And so that was something that was really fun also for me.
What did you like about the leadership component?
We had a few different talks about leadership and how to either lead it, because most of these people have their own companies. I mean, some of these women, my friend, I'll quit, Daniela, she produces, I mean, she's this like amazing scientist, and she has a business where she produces a way that the finfish don't need to have antibiotics based on some, you know, their own DNA, and then she does this, and then they're AI replicating it into all these other things. And so a lot of these women have their own businesses that they have to run, right? And so there was a few different talks of leadership. But he really, Robert Orr and his daughter Brianna, actually, I mean, she owns this billion-dollar company in Canada, and she personally gave me her email and was like, I was so inspired by you and your pitch deck. She was like, if you need anything from me. And I was like, wow, because she has this billion-dollar industry in Canada. She's a mom. That was another one that inspired me. She came and talked about being a mom and owning a business and how you can do it and you can set your own, you know, your own standards. But Robert Orr came in and he talked about leadership, and he really defined the difference between a leader and a manager, which sometimes people get confused where, like, you know, you feel like you're the leader and you have to manage everything and do all these different things. But he really came in and talked about the difference between a leader, you know, being a leader of something and then managing something. And it like spoke to me because, you know, being a leader is, you know, you're thinking ahead and you're thinking of the bigger picture and you're thinking about ideas that maybe people don't think of. And a manager is someone that, you know, just kind of like has to manage the day to day and kind of manage all those ideas for you. And you can't do both at the same time. It really is hard, you know, but the leadership, that one really spoke to me. I mean, that one really spoke to me.
I noticed that Melanie McFeel from Healthy Reef for Healthy People was there as well.
Oh, yes. You know her?
Yeah, she was in Belize for a period of time.
I know she was up there with Sarah. That's another friend of mine, Sarah. They're doing Caribbean crab cult. I guess they're growing them in tanks to try to put them back out on the reef to eat the macroalgae. Melanie McFields is there. She was the only one that really knew some of my struggles when I talked about the struggles about working in Belize and doing our work here. She could identify with some of those things.
What did you bring back for the organization? You had to, and that's one of the things I said to you. I said it was so important for you to do a report back. Most people in leadership do not, they're not tell you when they're going to represent you. They're not going to tell you what they're going to say. They not tell you how they get the information, what they're going to tell people. They come back and they don't tell you what happened. That is not a part of our culture. So it's very rare when people make it known that they're going to represent us in a meaningful way and come back and give a report back. So I told you, I'm like, Jalima, you have to come and Sunday review. I know Jalima for years. This is the first time it come, but the in the capacity of a community organizer and reporting back to the people that she, even though she's representing the specific people in percentage, she represents Belizeans. Anywhere you go, you said I'm Belizean and you open your mouth and however you behave, you do represent us, whether you like it, love it, or leave it. So I you reporting back.
From clothes to everything when I was there. I made sure I had all my Belize stuff on. I had to tell people where we were. So many people don't know anything about Belize. I mean, even my friend from Chile and Brazil, people don't know about us. We are clumped into Latin America, but we are Caribbean culture, right? Like we are not part of this, and people do not understand or know where we are, know what we do, know who we are. And so that was an exciting part for me, right? Because there were people from all over. And I was like, here we are, here's Belize. We're coming up in the mariculture industry and we're doing it strong. You know, no one could believe that we do have seaweed on the market here for 15 US a pound. They were like, oh, really? Wow. I was like, yes, hello. Our seaweed is better than yours. Hello.
What makes Belize seaweed like? Have you tasted seaweed from other places? Like, have you used value added product seaweed from Belize and from other places. What I mean, fish are personal. I said a fish stink. So how you know for we think that like good thing that like black gold?
Well, that's part of the I don't know how that long word, legitimization, or trying to legitimize our industry here, because we know this. We need help a little bit from government organizations and other people to help us solidify what we know, right? So we go out there and we say that our farms bring biodiversity back to an area that was recently did not have biodiversity. We know that because the farmers see it, right? Every single day, and they see, okay, there's conch, and now there's rays, and now there's this fish, and there was nothing there before. We have baby lobster, baby conch that all live within this little ecosystem that wasn't there before. We know that because they see it every day, but we need somehow to quantify that so we can go and tell these other people, this is why we should get money, is because we're doing good for, the environment. So we know that our seaweed is better. We're working on ways to kind of like scientifically prove that, but Belize is a non-industrialized country. All the other seaweed is grown, the waters and the environment that it's grown in is much different. And so we know because we know, but we're working on proving that in more scientific ways, right? And that's, water quality and different things like that will help us kind of do that, kind of, tell them this is why. Because it's also very hard when you are working with grants to quantify environmental impact, right? But it is something that you can say, okay, well, we deserve this because we're there's an environmental impact that we are giving to the reefs. And the reefs are worth this much, and so we're working on that, but we know Belize seaweed is better. We can't exactly pinpoint why, but because it's grown in the fashion that it's grown in, small scale and clean waters, we know that it's better, and we will prove it. And that's what the association's trying to do with labs. We've gotten our nutrition tested. We just recently sent out some to get like the amount of lead that's in it compared to other seaweeds. So we're working on that, but we know it's better.
Are there different strains or variety of seaweed?
There are many different strains and different ones. Currently in Belize, we have Ikuma and Capophycus. Ikuma is traditionally what everyone knows about. Capophycus is what's grown kind of all over the world, and there's been like a little bit of a difference between how it got to Belize, if it's native, if it's not. But the bottom line is that it is here, and so it is what's being farmed. And we're trying to kind of bring back Ikuma a little bit. Because there are different uses for each one, right? Ikuma has certain uses more for cosmetics, and Capophycus has different uses more for like the food industry.
Are there local names for those scientific variety of seaweed in Belize, or we just call
Ikuma, and then Capophycus they call macho because it's bigger and it grows differently, and it's much different than Ikuma, but they call it macho and then Ikuma. There's not really different names.
What's the life cycle of seaweed?
Well, the life cycle of seaweed, depending on the water temperature, between 2 to 3 months is how long it'll take for it to be able to be harvested. So if the water, it grows a little bit better when the water is cooler. Last year, we had a lot of hot water, and it was kind of detrimental a little bit to it, but it's about 2 to 3 months, depending.
We have another, according to my another 10 minutes or so. Was there anything that you learned about the seaweed industry that you did not know before you went to Hatch Blue?
About the seaweed, there were things that I could compare to our seaweed industry nationally that, I knew some of these things. I didn't know the exact statistics and how big it really was, right? But what I did learn, there's something called Seaweed Insights. It's an extensive study done on seaweed. I think it was about 2 years ago, last year, by the woman Carlotta at Hatch, who I work with closely. I learned that Belize, I think that we have to really coin our national seaweed and work on our national market before we push it out there onto the international market, because the international market is much different than our national market that we have here and what we use it for. So learning about the international market and the value and what it's used for and where it comes from and certain stuff like that, I think I bring back here and really, really solidified what we have been working on, which is we need to work on our national market first before we push it out there. because there's a lot of people that are coming in that are knocking at, Belize's door, these big international companies, because they know we have quality seaweed here, and they're more quick to like, let's grow seaweed and export it. But what I firmly believe, and that what we stand for, even at the BWSFA, is that we have to keep our seaweed in country and make our money in country before we ship it out to anywhere else. The different uses of seaweed, I was very, like, I didn't know you could make threads out of seaweed. I didn't know you could make, they have a feed for aquaculture shrimp that's made out of seaweed that I didn't know about. But those are all things that this country, we don't have the machinery to extract it. We don't have that. And all those are kind of low value. Belize, I learned there that we have a very high quality seaweed, and it's at a very high value. And it's very important for us to brand Belize seaweed as that high quality, sustainably grown seaweed, so we can make a good living off of it.
Excellent. Was there anything I didn't ask you that you really want to tell us before you left?
Oh no, I don't think. I would have to think about that. No, but this is very good. I want people to just look into more and pay attention about the mariculture industry and the aquaculture industry in Belize. It's kind of hard maybe to find information about it, but working through organizations like us, they have there's another group, the Placencia Producers Cooperative down here. There are other up north in the Belize, but I really feel like if the people get behind this and they understand that what we have in this country is very special, and they support certain organizations that try to keep this value in our country, that would make me very happy, because I think not a lot of people know, and there are a lot of things that go on the legislative level and policy level that could really kind of screw us in the long run when it comes to mariculture and seaweed production. And so we will need the support of the people when it comes down to it, and when we tell them we don't want big companies coming in here and exporting all of our goods. That's
where the politics came in.
I don't know about that.
No, but what you're saying makes damn good sense, Jalima. We definitely, I have to condone it and just have one experience at a seaweed farm. I haven't had that. And years ago, somebody else had invited me and I didn't go. But this year it is my intention to go and have that experience for sure. I want to say thank you deeply on behalf of Belize and Belizeans for the work that you continue to lead, your tenacity as a grassroots community organizer and representing everyday working people. It's very rare, and to do it at the level that you're doing it, and for you to stay true to yourself and not sell you out, it really does matter. And we want to say thank you, give our best vibration to the support team of seaweed farmers and the one brother who has been working hard. Thanks to
Facts. Also, I do want to mention, anybody, you can become a member of the BWSFA. You don't have to specifically be a farmer or specifically have to be, if you want to make value added products, we want to get a big membership of all different kind of people so we can have a bigger say in this, right? It's $20 a year, Belize, to become a member. You can go on our website, bwsfa.com. The more people we have that are just in our organization and know about what's going on will also help that. So I do encourage everyone, go on our website. You can email us. You can become a member. That's something else that I would like to say, because we named the Belize Women Seaweed Farmers Association very specific. It's not the Placencia. In our 5-year, in our big picture plan, we want everyone in Belize to be a part of our association so we can have a bigger impact. So anyone around Belize, you don't have to be from Placencia. You don't have to be a specific farmer. You can still become part of the organization.
Let me just hail up the one diaspora as well, because that go for no too. In the Belize diaspora. We want to thank our security guard, Brother Lloyd Lewis, Creme Radio, Engineer Larry G, Crumb Television, our Master Chief Operator, Alexis Belisle. Thank you, sis, for working with us so diligently. And I know you had to jump through all kind of hoops to get on this morning, Jalima. Thanks. I hope you take some time out to spend quality time with your family and just
Yes.
relax and listen to them tell you how you do on TV today and radio.
Oh, I'll call you right after this call. Shush.
Thank you, sis. Thank you, Selena. Thank you, Ronald. Thank you, everybody who sent me texts and stay in contact. Remember, the show repeats at 5:30 this evening on Creme Television. You could watch it at your convenience on Creme Television Facebook page. And remember, only the people want to save the people. One love.